100 years ago, somewhere in the Peruvian Andes, someone built a canal system so clever it's still watering crops today. Without an engineering degree or a spreadsheet, but just with some water, some stones, and some good common sense. Today, we spend our days analyzing or spend our days in laboratoriums developing the next best technology that's going to change our lives. Meanwhile, the Amunas canals are just sitting there in the mountains, quietly outperforming half of our modern infrastructure. Our next speaker has spent the last 25 years thinking about this kind of contradiction during her time at AB InBev. She's going to take us from the Andean canals to Belgian hop fields. And she's going to make her case for natural intelligence. The radical idea that maybe the smartest systems in the world are made a long, long time ago by nature. Please welcome Chief Sustainability Officer at AB InBev, Ingrid De Ryck.
Now I got your attention. We heard a lot of people speak here today about artificial intelligence, but I'm going to cover an entirely different kind of intelligence, one that's been around for billions of years. Living systems like yeast, bacteria, entire forests and ecosystems, they have built the capacity to sense, respond, adapt, and learn. I'd like to call that natural intelligence. And perhaps there is no better way to speak about natural intelligence than through the lens of a glass of beer. Now, are you thirsty yet? Hang in there. Happy hour is just around the corner. But truly, there is something remarkable about beer, isn't there? For centuries, people have been brewing it with just 4 simple ingredients: water, barley, hops, and yeast. And yet, behind every beer is a much bigger story that starts long before brewing starts in the brewery. It starts in fields, in living soil, on farms, with people who understand seasons, weather, uncertainty, and patience. It starts with healthy barley and resilient watersheds. And that is why our responsibility starts way before we start brewing. Because without water, there is no beer. Without barley, there is no beer. That's terrifying, isn't it? It's what keeps me awake at night. My name is Ingrid De Ryck, and I lead sustainability for AB InBev, the world's leading brewer. And when people ask me what it is I do, I tell them the answer is probably hidden in my closet. Over the years, I've collected quite a large collection of boots. I guess I do take after my mom in that way. There's some gummy boots for watershed visits, safety boots for brewery visits, cowboy boots even for farm visits, and hiking boots to cover some rough terrain. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some high-heel boots in there as well. I'm not completely stuck to the mud. But in a way, those boots tell the real story of my work. Because you don't practice sustainability in a meeting room. You don't practice sustainability on a PowerPoint. You can only truly embrace it through a boots-on-the-ground approach. Walking a field with a farmer or wading through a river, that is when the real learning starts. Or when you climb a mountain and you suddenly realize that some of the smartest ideas for the future are lying right beneath your feet. One of the most innovative technologies I have ever seen was more than 1,400 years old. I saw it high up in the Peruvian Andes. Now, trust me, getting there was no easy endeavor. It took us hours and hours on narrow mountain passes with the air getting thinner and thinner, and the locusts telling us to chew some coca leaves just so we wouldn't get dizzy. When we finally made it up there, I saw it. It was not artificial intelligence. It was not quantum computing. It was a 1,400-year-old system of canals built by the Incas centuries ago. It is called the Amunas, which literally means to sow water. And that's basically exactly what it does. During the rainy season, those ancient canals, they capture water and guide it down a mountain. The water slowly filters through the rocks and is stored underground, to then, months later, in the dry season, that same water to return through rivers and springs, exactly when communities need it most. This ancient system, it solves one of communities' most pressing challenges of today. How do we store water? How do we build resilience? Standing there, I realized I was not just looking at ancient infrastructure. I was looking at intelligence and at people practicing natural intelligence. Intelligence that got refined over centuries by people choosing to work with nature rather than trying to outsmart it. Since then, I think differently about innovation. Maybe innovation is not always about chasing what's new. Sometimes it's about rediscovering what has always worked. When we hear the word innovation today, most of us picture very advanced stuff, like data centers, satellite imagery. And don't get me wrong, I get excited about those technologies as well and how we make use of them at AB InBev. But the Amunas reminded me there's another kind of intelligence, natural intelligence. And we know that nature has been notoriously strict on its own performance, hasn't it? When it doesn't work, if it doesn't perform, it gets erased. If it works, it will adapt. And when it adapts, it will survive. Once you start looking around for natural intelligence, you will find opportunities pretty much anywhere. You can find it in nature and how it stores and filters water, in soil that holds life, or even in bees that act as tiny little sensors, capturing data about pollutants and changes in the surrounding ecosystem. So innovation and intelligence are not always to be found in shiny machines. Sometimes you can find it in a mountain, sometimes in a bee, and sometimes in a farmer who has been watching her same plot of land for many years, and she doesn't need a dashboard, a fancy dashboard telling her that change is coming. Now, I've been learning from farmers pretty much my entire life. My grandfather used to grow beets, potatoes, and fruits in Asse, Zellik, right here in Belgium. Now, that same region used to be known for its hop fields, and I remember as a child those high hop ranks stretching over the fields. At that time, I had no idea that one day I would be working for the world's leading brewer, but those hop fields and my grandfather have been teaching me lessons about natural intelligence long before I even knew the word existed. Farmers know that not everything can be controlled. You cannot rush a harvest. You cannot negotiate with the weather, and trust me, I've tried many times. You cannot demand the soil to follow your quarterly planning. Nature teaches humility. It teaches patience. It teaches you to think in seasons rather than quarters. And it teaches you that everything starts with the land. Now, I've been having many conversations with farmers all around the world. Barley farmers in Europe, sorghum farmers in Africa, and rice farmers in the US. The crops, the conditions, the landscape, it's all different, yet the questions are often the same. Will the rain come? Will there be too much rain? Will my crop survive? And even most important of all, will there be still farming for my next generation? Last year, I met a farmer called Joseph in Uganda. Joseph is part of our farmer training program there. Now, his land is high up in the Ugandan mountains, and it is so steep and rocky, I could barely stand up straight on it, let alone walk on it. Joseph just smiled when he watched me trying to make my way that mountain. For him, this was just another day. He told me how heavy rainstorms used to wash away his freshly planted seeds before they even had a chance to take root. Just imagine that. You spent weeks preparing, and one rainstorm washes away your entire future. That's your family plan, that's your income down the mountainside. Now, through our farmer training program, we've introduced simple changes in land management and in planting techniques just to help keep Joseph's seeds longer in the ground. In the end, the rain didn't change, but Joseph's ability to deal with it did. Later that day, making our way back down the mountain, we experienced one of the rainstorms that Joseph had told me about. While I was slipping and sliding on my butt through the mud, the farmers were passing me by with remarkable ease. My boots, clearly, were no match for that mountain. But unlike before, Joseph's seeds stayed in the ground. This is natural intelligence at its best. It's not the absence of shocks. It's resilience. It's the ability to keep growing after them. Now, Joseph's story is not unique. In Uganda, we work with more than 9,000 farmers and support them to build a stronger and more resilient future. So the lesson here is much bigger than the program. You don't become resilient by trying to control everything. You become resilient by learning to work with what changes. Now, learning from nature doesn't just happen on a continent away. Sometimes it happens in your own backyard. Last year, together with our partners from Natuurpunt, we walked through the Dodebemde, just an hour away from this stage. It was a cold winter day, and the landscape could not have looked more different from those Ugandan mountains. Yet, beneath the surface, beneath that quiet landscape were exactly the same challenges as the ones we saw in Peru and in Uganda. Too much water when it rains, not enough when it doesn't. So the question shouldn't be, how do we control nature? Rather, how do we work with nature? Through our work in the Dodebemde, we are helping to restore landscapes across Belgium so that nature can do what it has always done. Hold water, slow it down, filter it, and then release it when it's needed. Our work there has helped to retain an incremental 200 million liters of water every year to help battle water insecurity. That is the equivalent of about 80 Olympic-sized swimming pools, and I should know because I spend a lot of time in them. Sure sounds like a lot, doesn't it? Right? Think again. Just picture all of the water on Earth to be the equivalent of a 100-liter keg. About 97.5 of that is salt water, so 2.5 is fresh water. But even that is exaggerated, because 1.76 liters of that is locked. It's stuck in ice, in snow, in glaciers. So there's only 0.77 liters that is actually liquid, fresh water. And most of that is stored underground. So what about the visible fresh water that we all know in lakes and rivers and wetlands? That's only 0.008 liters out of that 100-liter keg. That is less than a teaspoon out of a 10-liter bucket. It's that tiny fraction of visible liquid fresh water that sustains life on Earth, that supports people, communities, agriculture, wildlife, and yes, beer. Because water is the main ingredient for the more than 500 brands that we brew, from Stella Artois to Budweiser, all around the world, enjoyed by 1 billion consumers. Yes, we are a large global company. And we act hyper-local, because water is a local reality, and we take that very serious. So every drop we store, every hectare we restore, helps make the landscape a little more resilient. And this brings me to the lesson I keep returning to. Modern systems typically optimize for efficiency. Nature optimizes for resilience. That distinction matters a lot. Efficiency asks, how fast will this work? Nature will ask, how long will this work when conditions change? Diverse systems might look messier than a simple, clean monoculture, but it can bend, adapt, and recover. This is true in nature, and it is increasingly true in business too. Regeneration means that systems are stronger after use, not weaker. And this is not a soft idea, we can make it very practical as long as we tap into natural intelligence. Biodiversity spreads risks. Wetlands act as sponges and hold water, and farmers with better practices will be able to protect their harvest. Now, none of this is an argument against technology. On the contrary, we need technology, we need science. But we need to be careful not to measure intelligence too narrowly. Artificial intelligence helps calculate solutions faster. Human intelligence helps to decide what matters more. Natural intelligence teaches us how we can endure. If the modern debate forces us to choose between economy, technology, and nature, we risk looking at our future through a very narrow lens. While that future should be about learning how to work with those different kinds of intelligence across all of that. And that is why we as brewers practice natural intelligence and work with the living systems behind every beer. So when I look back at my collection of booths, I don't just see places I've visited. I see learning moments of natural intelligence. Resilience is not manufactured. It is learned. So for me, that is natural intelligence. It's the intelligence of life itself, learning how to continue. And with that, I would like to raise a beer. Finally, I can hear you think. Cheers to farmers and communities. Cheers to technology helping us work better with the living systems. And cheers to the simple and powerful idea that sometimes the best solutions for the future are lying right beneath our feet. We just need to be curious enough to learn from them. Cheers to nature. Thank you.